Welcome to Hey Sister. This is episode 45. Let's get physical.
Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
Join me, Courtney Lewis,
And me, Carly Ferguson.
in our conversational podcast about everyday situations.
You can count on us to tell it to you straight with our own sisterly spin.
Consider this a phone call with your own Southern sisters as we discuss with you personal accountability, healthy relationships, managing responsibilities, and contributing to society.
Each episode will consist of straight talk and a call to action.
Your sisters are calling.
Thanks for answering.
Hey sisters, welcome to another episode of Hey Sister. This is Carly, and I want you to know Courtney and I are so glad y'all are joining us for our straight talking sisterly phone call during our back to school series. And a little side note, speaking of sisterly phone calls, did you know this podcast is called Hey Sister because Hey Sister is how the sisters in our family actually greet each other when we call one another. So just a reminder that when you hear us say, Hey Sister, we are talking to you. We consider you part of our sisterhood.
Like Carly said, we love a good sisterly phone call. We learn a lot from the women within our family, but there are so many sisters throughout the world who we love learning from. Cue our back to school theme. So far, we've learned about science through gardening with Kathleen, music in our daily lives with Marin, and using math through our family budgets with Michaela. Today, let's get physical. We're going to PE class with Mary Eagan. Mary is a personal trainer and gym owner and offers the best group training in Western Oklahoma. I first came to know Mary when I lived in Clinton, Oklahoma 7 years ago. I was looking for a place to teach Zumba, and she was opening a new gym and was kind enough to let me use her beautiful urban-inspired studio. Teaching at her studio and making friendships with my Zumba students quickly became one of my favorite parts of my week. One of my favorite aspects of Mary is that she focuses on total body fitness and on fitness as a benefit for our future selves, that we will be able to move and keep up with kids and grandkids as we age. It's not just about fitness for the sake of a peak and sleek physique at the current moment. Mary is incredibly kind, and we are honored to have her with us today as our PE coach for our Back to School series. Mary, welcome to Hey Sister.
Thanks for having me today.
We're so happy to have you. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I'm a Colorado raised girl. I actually grew up in small rural America, Western Slope. Went to college for a degree in agricultural business economics, but I just really have a passion and have always had a passion for movement. So when it comes to my own PE experience, whatnot, I played all sports. I grew up most of my years near the ski resorts. So skiing and snowboarding, maybe even a little bit of rodeo, running, volleyball, basketball, all the things. And now as an adult, I just feel like I'm so grateful that I got to find what I was created to do. And I've just really loved my own business. I'm on my 15th year now, but got to open my own gym 6.5 years ago. So it's all really exciting.
I loved being part of your gym when you were opening the new gym in Clinton. I know that you'd done personal training before that, but I remember when you were opening that gym, it was so exciting, and you really are such an expert at what you do. And we are so glad to have you here with us today. It makes sense that you've been passionate about PE and all of the sports that you played as a youth, because that passion shows as an adult. I'd be curious to hear what differences you notice as a child doing sports and activities like that through school versus trying to prioritize health and physicality as an adult.
The one common thing, obviously, is we only have one body. We only have one. And I have to say, the similarities are, I don't think it's an option. I hate now hearing in high schools PE is an elective, because it's just not, we don't really get an election whether we get to move or not and keep our bodies healthy. So when you're really young, the similarities are we need to move and have PE every single day. And then you're right, we become adults, we become moms, and all of a sudden we have all these other big things on our plates. And that seems to be actually pretty selfish if you're just worrying about your fitness or whatnot. And so instead of realizing it's part of the whole healthy package, so that's probably the biggest difference that I feel comes into play is everyone starts thinking they have to pick or choose and still realizing we really don't have an option to move.
You did a video not too long ago on your social media about part of movement is putting on your shoes. And you can even get physical by just trying to balance on one foot while you put your tennis shoe on, and like little things like that, that maybe you're a young mom and you don't think that you have the time to prioritize yourself and your fitness during the day, but maybe you can try and put on your shoe by balancing on one foot. I love that kind of out of the box thinking too.
Well, and I love how you said that it does feel sometimes like, "Oh, I don't want to devote so much time to that because it's like taking away from other time that I might be spending with my kids." But really, when we are trying to be physical, it benefits us with our kids because we're able to have more energy for them. I've got 3 little boys, and they just can suck so much of my energy because I'm getting them in the car seat and doing things. And if I don't take time to be intentional with building some muscle or something, then when I go to do those regular movements, actions during the day, it'll strain me even more. So, as much as it's hard to take that time to devote time to that, I guess it does pay off when you go to use it.
I think you nailed it. It's totally the oxygen mask thing. Like, kind of have to put yours on. We have to think clearly. We have to have energy. We have to be strong. There's all the things that we do have to take care of. You definitely learn this as you grow out of your 20s and 30s. It's definitely not about the bikini body anymore. I mean, it's about having energy, knowing that you're thinking clearly, and just keeping up with everything. So, yeah, of course, you have to have the strength. And I think when you put that into perspective and you're like, hey, wait a minute, when mom's healthy, everything else flows better at home, right?
Totally.
It's very true. So in high school, you might have a 45-minute to an hour and a half long class that you have that you can attend to do PE or whatever sport your elective is. I know you're like, you hate that it's an elective, right? But if that's your hour of that time, it's slotted into your day. As an adult, we don't have a curriculum of this is the time of day when you do everything that somebody assigns you to, that you have to report to a class. When have you seen that prioritizing your exercise time is best for most adults, or does it vary?
I think that would definitely vary. People ask, okay, what's the best time to work out? And I can't remember the statistic, but it's something like maybe 11 or 12 o'clock in the middle of the day because your body's been warmed up. But the reality is whenever you're going to. My bread and butter class is my 5:45 a.m. class because very few things get in the way that early in the morning. If you wait until after work or later in the day, everything piles up. So I would say just with my experience in my classes, that seems to be my most successful class. I have after work or after school classes that are very successful and have done a great job. But at the end of the day, it would be anytime you can get it in. As a Colorado girl, there was plenty of people their lunch hour. That's when they didn't take away from their family. They could still eat at their desk or whatever their job was. And so they would do their lunch hour. There's other places they don't want to go back to work sweaty and gross. And I totally understand that. But man, if I could just talk to anybody and any time that they're going to do it and any amount of time, there's definitely 15-minute options, 30-minute options, 45, an hour. I don't want anyone to ever feel like, oh, if I don't do it for an hour, it's a waste of my time, because that's totally not true.
As you were talking about that, I think sometimes what intimidates me from doing a workout is feeling like I will be drained afterwards. And I know like immediately after you have the endorphins, but is there a way to have our energy so that we can continue even after that through the rest of the day if we're worried that we're going to tap ourselves out if we're doing a workout during the day?
Yeah, no, I totally understand. And so then you kind of open a little can of worms, because one of the things I'm not understanding is I have more clients with autoimmune disease, and I don't understand why, and it shouldn't be that way, because layman's term says their body's fighting their own body. Now, there's some autoimmune disease that they have this cup of energy, and we have to be really careful because once they spend the energy, they don't ever get it back. But the rest of us, the majority of the others that are just relatively healthy, it all comes down to eating. Eating is going to be your energy source, what you're eating. And if you will stick with it, I will put my guarantee on it, you're going to sleep better, which in turn is going to be more energy, which in turn, after a little bit of downtime, eat something and you'll have more energy to go.
It's like a full picture thing, instead of thinking of it as like a quick supplement or something to be like, okay, and then just have this caffeine to keep you going. Like that's not a healthy way to that are doing it. Because like if you just stick with it, then don't fear not having that energy ahead of time. I think that sometimes it's just brought into our minds and it's just a reason and an excuse to maybe not
Exactly.
do it, which isn't it funny when the alarm clock goes off, how many excuses can flood your brain where you're like, oh, actually, I shouldn't do that.
It might be unhealthy if I don't get sleep or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Right, right.
So the good sleep and having good foods, totally makes sense. Thank you.
So you've said that any amount of workout time, 15 to 60 minutes, great. Work with what you've got. You don't have to have a full hour to feel like it's worth doing. I'm curious if you have any other mottos that you live by, Mary.
My shirt that I have on now actually says it's okay to be uncomfortable. I think so often everybody gets really nervous in working out and they get really scared and nervous. So it's okay to be uncomfortable. And when I hiked Mount Everest Base Camp, I have a picture and my shirt says live with passion. So that's kind of something that's been on my shirts. Right now, I'm trying to come up with some verbiage here going into the future is I'm so grateful I never quit. So I started 15 years ago in Clinton. I started training, which was my late 20s. Now I'm in my early mid 40s. And I'm so grateful I never quit. And I realized it was my job. But as a perfect example, if I could just talk to my 30 and 40-year-old moms, like, you do have the money and you do have the time. It's way worth not losing it and then trying to scratch your way out, which it's never too late. I would never want anyone to think that part. But yeah, just you've got to start moving and never quit moving. And not to buy into it's got to be one certain way or the other. Find what works for you. Find what you enjoy doing. Experiment with a whole bunch of other things. I think you might be surprised. I've got people who never thought they'd like lifting as heavy weights as we lift, but super rewarding, great endorphins. So always experiment, but find something you like.
I love all those quotes. It's okay to be uncomfortable. That one strikes me. I feel that because I really like my comfort zone. So it's good to remember it's okay to be uncomfortable. And especially I feel like the day after the workout, that's usually when I feel the most uncomfortable.
Yeah, right.
That's great. So, Mary, any personal experiences or research to share on this topic?
I originally got personal training and group training certification, and then I went on and got underground strength and conditioning certified. I have a daughter that's an athlete, and I just wanted to be part and understand the strength and conditioning. And I'm now actually taking a next level neurology class. And the class I'm taking is taking all this neurology stuff, and basically everything comes from the brain, and then making your body work efficiently, which will be less injury, more success in movement, and maybe even weight loss and all that kind of stuff. And so that's next level neuro. So that's a class I'm taking now. So I always try to keep learning and continue my education.
Those sound so
Wow.
interesting. Wow. That's awesome.
It's so cool.
Yeah. And for us that don't have the resources or the mental faculties to be able to take all that in, it's nice to know that you can take it and then share it.
Okay, so this is a fun fact thinking about PE. So kids really have to know there's a combination of skipping and reading. It comes hand in hand. And if you can work on your kid on skipping, you're actually working on them with things that'll help with reading too. And it's all on your neurology and nervous system. I think it's fascinating. Cursive or art, when you do like circles and figure eights, it makes the brain really happy and it helps you move more efficiently during the day. You've probably heard the kids that skipped crawling and went straight to walking generally have a hard time and may be dyslexic. And it's because movement is always corresponding with the brain tells your body to move. So all happens in the brain first. So it's fascinating. It's so cool.
That is fascinating. And it does inspire you to do different motions. I think there's so much to that. Sometimes we get in this rhythm or routine during the day. And when I do a class that is like a group fitness class and dancing or something, it's just so great to have my hips moving or like doing even spastic motions that I wouldn't normally be doing, but getting outside that comfort zone and telling my body to do something that it wouldn't normally do. It snaps me back into a different way of thinking afterwards.
I totally agree.
Mary, I've got a random question for you that just popped into my head. I would be curious to know, what is the most physically intense thing that you've ever pushed your body to do?
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, I'd love answering that. Last year I called it Dominate the 48. So we ran 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. It's something David Goggins does. And you think to yourself, 4 miles, I can run 4 miles, but it's every 4 hours. So we started at 8 p.m., midnight, 4 a.m., 8 a.m., noon, 4, 8, 12, you know what I mean? You get it for 48 hours. That one definitely was not just impossible, but it was mentally strong to wake up at midnight and run 4 hours and get as much sleep as you can. I do a lot of hiking. This next week, I'll be hiking 100 miles of the Colorado Trail. So we bring in our tent and all our food. And that's not too much physical as much as mental, like preparing it, knowing you're out there in the middle of nowhere. I don't know. They're all just different,
Wow, that every 4 hours for 48 hours, that sounds incredibly hard. Was that so rewarding at the end of it?
It was so rewarding because it's not impossible. It's a mental game.
Mhm.
You can walk 4 miles. So you end up, the math is 48 miles in 48 hours. I think that's why it was so rewarding, as you were like, I did something that just was mentally hard. It was mentally hard to wake up, and yeah, it was very rewarding. Highly suggested.
So that was harder than Mount Everest base camp?
Yes.
That's a lot of training that goes into that, right? And
Yeah, that's an 11-day ascent. That's the highest I've ever been in elevation, but this takes 11 days to get up there, and it's a whole bunch of baby steps, and someone carries the majority of your luggage. I have my day pack, but lack of breathing, and if you've ever been to elevation, I mean, that's challenging. It really is. I'm not negating that part, but you just kind of do it.
And you said that the 48-hour challenge, that was by David Goggins. Is that what you said his name was?
Yeah.
He's the Navy SEAL, right? That
Uh-huh.
writes those books about all the physical challenges. And I feel like I've heard about him before.
Yes. His book, the one main book is You Can't Hurt Me. It's just a great book, just average guy. You don't think he is for what he's accomplished, but that's kind of his storyline. Just an average guy just makes a switch and is like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And so he makes a switch, loses a lot of weight, runs tons, and becomes a Navy SEAL. And yeah.
Pretty much all the things that you just listed that you've done, Mary. So,
motivational.
yeah. So sisters, y'all can see why we had Mary on today.
You inspire me, Mary. I mean, like, that's awesome.
Jump in one of those 48-hour ones.
Yeah.
A lot of times people just do it on their own. David Goggins does it as a whole group at the beginning of March. We did ours in just September. There's like 8 of us. So for ultra people, they say they use that to train because you're having to run on tired, fatigued body.
That makes sense.
It's one that it's doable. You could run 4 miles probably coming off the flu. Like you really could. And so in that mind, you're like, I can run 4 miles, but you just have to get your mind set up for that next time and the next time.
Okay, that's cool. I would totally do that. And
Carly and her husband will totally do that.
Do it.
They're that kind of
I don't know.
people.
Steele, my husband's name is Steele. He did a marathon with me, and after that, he was like, I will not do that again. He likes.
Mary, what call to action do you have for our sisterhood?
The thing I would challenge everybody is we all want something so bad. We want to maybe lose that weight or want to get in shape or want to feel good. And so a lot of times we're willing to jump to anything. I've definitely seen it in the last 2 years, just a whole bunch of fads come out. And if I could get everybody just to be honest with themselves of where they are, and for the next week, I'd actually say the next 2 to 4 weeks, if you would journal your food, find something that MyFitnessPal or Chronometer, something that tells you how many calories you eat and your macros. You don't even have to know what that is. That doesn't matter. I could talk to you later, but if you would journal your food for 2 or 3 weeks, don't put in there what you think people want you to eat or what you're supposed to, but what you honestly eat. And then we can look at, say, I'm not far off target. I just need to make tweaks. So I would say start journaling your food for 2 to 4 weeks and then start taking an assessment of your steps, not only a workout, but your steps, and just see how active are you in a day. So my call to action for the next 2 to 4 weeks, just take an assessment of where you are. No judgment, nothing. Just see where you are, and then we could have a conversation and know where we can make the tweaks to take it to the next level. And I find my clients are way more successful when they take this approach.
Being honest with ourselves is hard when you don't want to acknowledge that you ate a few Reese's peanut butter cups. Okay, if I'm being honest, it was the Trader Joe's peanut butter cups, but I did eat more of them than I should have today. But I don't want to confess that. I'm like, oh, I don't want to write it down. I just want to enjoy it in solitude and not have anybody notice. But we do need to be honest with ourselves and realize, okay, am I eating my fruits and vegetables? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? But if I'm not, at least write it down so that we're being honest with ourselves. And I appreciate that call to action. Now, Mary, if everybody keeps track of where they're at and then they have more questions, where can our sisterhood find you?
So my website is akinfitness.com. That's AKIN fitness.com. And then my Instagram's a good one. It's Akin_fitness. And those would be good places. You can contact me and just direct message me. I chit chat with anybody has any questions. All my classes are Zoom, or if you're in Western Oklahoma, as well as I have an app so I can help you out with workouts at your own gym.
That's awesome. Great. And I like how on the call to action, it really is like over several weeks. So sometimes we think day to day, like, oh, today it was so bad. But like knowing kind of over a span of time is helpful to get a better view of where we're at usually.
Yeah, you're right. First of all, one day is not going to mess it up. The other thing is I just get this all the time, and And I don't mean to be negative or hateful, but people are like, I eat great. And in your head, you're like, and so they're just not real. One day, Trader Joe's, Reese's, we're in positions that we move. But when a lot of people are like, I just don't know how it is. I eat great. I love vegetables. And you're like,
Okay.
So if you can, for a long period of time, be like, okay, but this is my trending habit. But also, when you do that, if these are your trending habits, then most people are like, oh, that's all I have to do is that one little tweak. Yeah, you don't have to just sell the whole ranch and buy this whole program that you're not going to keep up with. We can generally take little tweaks from what you naturally do and see results.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. All right. So reminder, all links we've shared in today's episode and a minute marker timeline is available in our show notes. We invite you to join our online conversations this week about this episode on Instagram at the Hey Sister Podcast or at facebook.com/Hey Sister Podcast.
Mary, thanks again so much. Sisters, be sure to do this week's call to action, and we would love to hear from you on our roll call post this week at the Hey Sister Podcast on Instagram. So be sure to check us out there and follow up with me and Carly to see if we're following up on this week's call to action from Mary. So keep track of what you're eating and how much energy you're expending. And if you're actually working out, just keep track of what you're doing in your daily life. And if you've got more questions, Mary's there for you. So thanks again, Mary, and sisters, thanks for tuning in this week. And we hope y'all join our call next week for our back to school series continued. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Y'all are both incredible with your runs. Y'all go. You're amazing.
Steele, he did a marathon with me. And after that, he was like, I will not do that again. He sprinted.
He probably didn't train.
Oh, he trained, but he would have trained actually more than I.
Carly doesn't train.
I was like, you're fine. You run 16 miles. You're going to be fine. It's all mental. Don't worry about it.
They're the most mental couple you've ever met.
He ended up mental, in a crazy way. Yeah.
Yeah.
He ended up sprinting the last 6 miles. And I was like, go. I can tell that I'm holding you up. Just take off. And he was like, I passed so many people. And I'm like, they hate you.
And then if he's that driven like that, that just made him go faster because you're like, this is fun.
Yeah, exactly.